Welcome in, everybody, to another late night edition of 410 Sports Talk. I am James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin and DK in the back running the show. Of course, we are here to talk about our Baltimore Ravens as always, but this show is going to be pretty fun. I think we're going to, really pose the question and kind of take a look at the entire AFC North and talk about whether or not we think the Ravens have kept up, whether or not they've done enough, and look at, obviously the Bengals have made some moves, the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing their thing, and the Bengals or the Browns, are they the Browns still, or are they not? But we're going to talk about all of it, of course, here. But before we do, we gotta keep the lights on, talk about our loyal sponsor, BetOnline. Glenn, what they got going on these days, man?
Yeah, with the madness right around the corner, BetOnline will continue to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. And Jim, the free agency has been active. It's been, I think, I feel like I say this every year, and I even asked a couple people, like, is this something that shit? But it feels like there's been some big time players changing teams and moving around, and maybe that's just something that I say every year, but it feels like it's been an active year this year in the NFL when it comes to players changing teams. And the Ravens have been involved to some degree early on. Most of it's been re-signing, but I did want to quickly, before we move on to some other topics here, throw up the most recent signing and most recent addition to the Ravens here. And it's a position that we said they needed to address, right? We said they needed to go out. Even though it's not going to be front page news, they needed to go out and address the backup quarterback position. Josh Johnson is, an aging guy, and I don't think he really fits what the Ravens are looking for. And I think Cooper Rush does that a little bit better in a sense that he's a little bit younger. He's got some decent playing experience when you look at the injuries to Dak Prescott and force Cooper Rush into play in a lot of ways. And they get him for a 2-year deal. $6.2 million, has a maximum value of $12.2 million based on the incentives that include like playtime, starts, and wins. But the base deal is 2 years, $6.2 million. What's your thoughts on the Ravens adding Cooper Rush? Were you? I know it's not a huge deal. It's not going to make you all of a sudden, wow, we're Super Bowl or bust. But were you happy to see him get the deal done?
It's always hard to judge a guy that, I only saw him, most recently with the Cowboys, unless I'm thinking of a different Cooper Rush.
No, you're right. Yep.
But, it's nothing spectacular on the field, but we got younger at the position, to your point. And he's shown he can play formidable football, is what I'll say.
12 touchdowns, 5 picks, and a backup role last season.
Yeah, formidable.
61%.
For sure. But to that point, I hope we never see him take a snap unless Lamar's absolutely dominating and it's the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That's it. So I'm glad that we did address it, to your point. I'm glad that we got younger. And I hope Josh Johnson gets a good coaching job somewhere if that's what he wants to do. And kudos to him. But yeah, I think it's a good move. Good move.
Quickly, just want to put up here. I just figured out how to do that. Do you see how I did that?
No.
I switched tabs that I'm sharing.
Ooh.
Yeah, buddy.
Let's go.
Yeah, buddy. So yeah, did just want to throw up there his performance last season. About 61%, 1,850 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 picks, 83.8 quarterback rating. So about what you can expect from a backup, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, but let's move on.
Now we got bigger news for the Baltimore Ravens, though, Glenn.
Yeah, and what's that?
Well,
tell the people.
You told me earlier that we were talking about it, but big as in physically big news to the Baltimore Ravens. The one, the only Ben Cleveland is back in Baltimore for a 1-year deal, right?
1-year deal. Yep.
Dude, and I'm gonna go out on a limb, Glenn. You ready for this?
Okay.
Ben Cleveland is gonna be your starting right guard next year.
Can you tell John?
You heard it here, Glenn. Well, look, he signed him 24 hours after I said it, so he obviously watches the show. Eric watches the show. This
And what is your
Ben
theory?
Cleveland's year. Well, look, he's going to be focused.
Why is that?
Because he's coming off this terrible divorce, man. Like
Yeah.
he's going to be so honed in. I mean, look, all he's going to want to do is physically exhaust himself playing football so that when he goes home at night, he doesn't have to think about his situation. He can just go to bed. He can just fall asleep and then get up and do it the next day. It's exactly what he's going to do. And so Ben Cleveland is going to dominate this year. And I'm looking forward to it. Ben Cleveland, baby. Starting right guard. You heard it here.
It's an interesting point because and we're going to get into some of the comments and contracts of this guy in a little bit. But Jamar Chase was asked about the city of Cincinnati, and he said, "Look, it's great for me. There's nothing to do here. It gives me time to focus on my primary job." He said the food isn't even great, but there's no distractions because that's all he can. Which I'm sure the city of Cincinnati loved to hear.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what you're saying. Like he's going to, you're banking on him going, you know what? I'm going to focus all my attention on my career and flip things around. Well, maybe you're right. Maybe you're wrong, but it remains to be seen. I just find it shocking that Ben Cleveland wanted to come back here after all the issues of him being in the apparent John Harbaugh doghouse. And, all season, and certainly leading up to the season, we saw many people saying, why the hell is Ben Cleveland not the starting right guard? Everything, all the film experts on YouTube said that he looks better, but yet some reason he couldn't get into the starting lineup. So I don't know why Ben wanted to come back when I'm sure that this wasn't his only and sole opportunity to be in the NFL.
Right.
But I'm also not really, I guess it makes more sense why the team would want him. Familiarity. He already knows the verbiage. They draft him. They know what they're getting, all that. But I just don't know why Ben wanted to come back, I guess.
Yeah, well, he wants to come back and prove himself and win the job. It's unfinished business.
Yeah.
Dude.
Okay. And now he did have the DUI, right? So maybe that's hindering his ability to get a contract elsewhere. I don't know if that is really playing much of a...
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, shout out to Lisa Ann back in the chat.
It's
been a while.
Yes.
It's awesome to see you back in the chat. I've been wondering, how's everything been going and missing you in the chat there. So, man, awesome to see you back out there. Shout out to Lisa Ann back in the building. Welcome back and welcome to everyone. Jax, Clot, Carla, appreciate you guys. Osmond, appreciate you guys coming out. But yeah, good for the Ravens. Just still a bit of a head scratcher from Ben Cleveland's point of view, unless that DUI is causing him issues getting contract offers elsewhere.
Yeah, doesn't matter to me what the circumstances are. Ben made the right decision. The Ravens made the right decision. Dude, I am all in on Ben Cleveland this year. I'm calling it, dude.
I love that. Okay. Well, I have a feeling you're going to be pissed off and you're going to be watching him on the sideline wondering why the hell he is. But I also wanted to throw this up before we get into some of the contract talks of Ronnie Stanley, because this was a big deal. This was something I think the Ravens fans were waiting to see if this would happen, and if not, what that meant. And so as you can see on the screen, the Ravens did pick up the $4 million roster bonus on the 5th day of the new league year, which was this past Saturday, which the fact that they weren't able to make any sort of deal before that roster bonus triggered makes it very unlikely that he's on the move. At least that's the feeling amongst the media members, that if he were going to be moved, it would have been done before the $4 million roster bonus.
Right.
Not likely they're going to pay him that just to immediately trade him. And what it tells us is that either one of two things: either the Ravens asking price was too high and overinflated Mark Andrews' market value around the league, or that the offers were too low and the Ravens weren't willing to just part with Mark Andrews simply as a cap, for cap relief. They value his ability, his talent on the team. And I think this shows, and he's sticking around, Jimbo.
Yeah. The only question I had in follow-up to this, Glenn, was I was trying to think, and maybe you've already thought about this. What does this do anything to move one way and the other the likelihood of an extension, right? Like, I don't think it does. I think it's kind of a moot point when it comes to the extension, but I think it is, to your point, an obvious indicator that Mark Andrews is not going anywhere. But I do think that, we've talked about this a lot. I think his cap number is not a scenario. It's not a scenario which the Ravens want to go in the season having. So I'm interested by this situation because I think his cap number is what, 16?
Yeah, and they could save, what was it, 11 if they were going to cut him or trade him.
And it was like
6 or 7 million if they were able to get
for an extension.
Yeah. So I the only way I see that happening is if there's someone that they're targeting that they need that money and they feel like, all right, we got to go get this guy. He's the difference maker. He's the over the hump type guy. But if there's not one of those targets out there, I don't see him just doing it just to do it. But man, it is interesting if you can pivot from 1 week fielding trade offers to the next week extending that same guy. Seems like a big change in philosophy around one player, but so that's kind of what makes me think they would have to be a target before they would make the call to extend to free up that space.
Yeah, the only thing I think is, once again, I've just been doing this exercise in my head. If you take the name away from it, and you say he's Lamar Jackson's.
I exercise too, Jimmy.
What's up?
That's how I exercise too.
Yeah,
in my head.
So like if you take the name away from it and you say Lamar Jackson's number one target is 28. Last year, the league in touchdowns for all tight ends, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe so.
Why would you not? Why are you against extending him? The chances that the guy behind him, as good as likely will be, the chances of him being that is no knock on likely. It's just not extremely high.
Mm-hmm.
And your guy is still in this prime. He's 28 years old. I mean, I think you got 3 more years out of this thing, right? At the very least, before you start questioning, oh, does he still have it? Has he lost a step? This, that, and the other. So to your point, I guess I disagree a little bit because I think you do the extension not only because it makes sense from a cap perspective, but also because I don't know if I want him to hit free agency. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or have to deal with a franchise. Like I want him here.
Long term, more than just this year.
Yeah. You know, I've come absolute full circle with this. I didn't want anything to do with Mark Andrews, but yeah, I'm there at this point. My opinion, I'm able to change my opinion. That's okay.
Yeah, you're allowed. You're allowed. Yeah. New information certainly changes that. I trust someone who changes their opinion more with new information than one that just stays firm on an opinion no matter what the evidence presented to them. I will say that you're right. Glenn, you already pointed out.
Oh, there you are. You were frozen for a sec. You're back.
Oh, okay. I will point out you're right that I think the big thing that's stopping them is the potential deal with Likely. And if you pay and extend Mark Andrews, it makes it really hard to pay 2 tight ends, the market value that Likely is going to demand. Same reason why you don't typically see a team pay 2 guards, pay 2 tackles, pay really 2 of anything is not the most likely unless you're the Cincinnati Bengals who decide to just give half their entire salary cap to 3 players. It's not usually, a method that teams use. So to pay 2 tight ends, top 5 money, I don't see it happening.
Right.
And I think that's why it's unlikely that a Mark Andrews extension, even though I'm for it, I think that they're looking at this as the last hurrah for Mark Andrews.
Yeah. Wow. Well, look, you got to do it sometime, right? Like I can't blame them. But I do think it could be, I was thinking about this comparison last time. I didn't mention this. Could this be a Marshall Yanda, Ben Grubb situation?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It could end up being something like that too.
And they paid an older guy in that scenario.
Yeah. And this, would be similar. And maybe what they do, this could be strategic too. This could be thinking too deeply, but I wouldn't put it past Eric. If you give Mark an extension now you signal to Likely that he's not staying. And so it could, in a way, demotivate him to be like, whatever, like, I'm not going to get this job anyway.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Now, on the other hand, it could, of course, motivate him to go out there and ball out. But you kind of create a competition a little bit there. By holding. And so, yeah, there could be that as well. I don't know. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, it's just... without knowing these guys, other than what we see them say into a microphone, it's hard to know what motivates each guy and how that would affect the mentality of those players. That's tough to know. But either way, I'm happy to know that the Ravens, at least as it stands right now, aren't taking away weapons. They're gonna keep them, keep the ones they have, and add to the group like they have with DeAndre Hopkins, and so yeah, just hopeful. Yeah, exactly. Yes, Brian. Yes, Cincinnati did do it. They did do it, and they are looking to beat teams 96-90
For real.
because that's how they're gonna have to win. Oh man, that was an interesting decision, which we're going to talk about in 1 second. Quickly, before we move on to some of the stuff around the AFC North, I did want to bring up Ronnie Stanley had his presser where he signed his contract and was officially announced as the left tackle here for at least the next couple of seasons. He was asked about playing elsewhere. Do you ever envision himself in a different uniform? And he said no. He said he never envisioned himself out of respect in a different uniform. He knew it was always going to be, giving Baltimore the first right of refusal, give Baltimore the best bargain, because this is one of the true and rare scenarios in the NFL where there was loyalty on both sides, right? Like the Ravens did him a solid in years past. Certainly, signed him to a monster contract only to see him go out the same week and then not return to himself or, for a couple of seasons. And we saw him repay that kindness in his last contract renegotiation or restructuring where he took a pay cut to stick around in Baltimore, bet on himself, stayed healthy, played his ass off, and now he's being rewarded. But it sounds like, Jimbo, he could have made some more money had he gone elsewhere and chose to stay in Baltimore.
Yeah. I think there were two certainly pursuers, and we kind of discussed it before the show. Some I think actually there's a legitimate investigation going on for tampering, right?
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, by the Patriots and the Chiefs.
Yep.
I don't know the exact figures on how much more money was out there. I think it was like $4 million annually a year,
4 or 5 million annually
a year. Yeah. But the biggest thing is, look, Ronnie is no. I guess you could say. Ronnie's no. I don't think he's a quick trigger type of guy. I think he really thinks things through. Does a good job at making slow decisions when he has to. And I think that it's exciting to see loyalty, but also I think it's a smart move for Ronnie. Now you could argue that the Chiefs would be a better situation for him. One could argue that playing for Patrick, Patrick Mahomes' offense, that and the other. But I think if you just look at the lineups one for one, I know the Chiefs were just in the Super Bowl. I think the Ravens are a better team. Look, I'm a Ravens fan. I have Ravens on my shirt, so it's easy for me to say that. But I think we're in a better situation for us to succeed in the next few years. So I think Ronnie made the right decision in that, I think it all evens out in the wash at the end of the day. It's a few million. I know that sounds ridiculous to say, but ultimately I'm happy that he made the right move, that he's going to be happy, and we're going to continue to compete and have a lockdown left tackle. But yeah, I wasn't super surprised by the demonstrated loyalty. Were you?
A bit. Yeah, you just don't see it in professional sports.
Now, if we were terrible, then I would have been absolutely shocked.
Yeah, look, what's Ronnie getting? He gets an opportunity to continue playing in front of Lamar Jackson, playing for an organization that's consistently competing for the ultimate goal. He's getting a lot too, but $5 million is still $5 million more in a year. And you're talking about over a multi-year contract. You're talking to what, 10 to 15 million more? And I'm sure, there's fees that come out of that. There's taxes to be paid. But regardless of that, he's giving up potentially millions of dollars. Now, he has millions, and it probably won't change his neighborhood like Draymond Green said once, but it's still $4 to $5 million per year. And that's hard to say no to some people, especially when you have influences around you where families going, that's $5 million more a year. That's $5 million more that could be passed down to the next generation. So there's just a lot of pressures to always take the most money, especially when it's a decent gap like that. So I'm impressed with both sides, really, and a bit surprised. Yeah,
it had to be the Patriots deal that was the biggest, because that one would be easiest to check off. There had to be
Patriots, yeah.
Yeah, even if it's more, right? And I would be willing to bet that the guarantees between the Ravens and the Chiefs, the difference, like the delta between those two, was minimal, in my opinion.
Well, they don't have any space. I don't even know how
Right.
they could offer more than us.
They just cleared a ton of cap, right? They did the whole thing with Pat. They cleared some fat cap there. But we could have done the same thing with Lamar. Maybe not cleared quite as much, but certainly a big chunk of that. But I would be willing to bet that the guarantees there, that whatever the difference was minimal.
Yeah, you're probably right. I can see that. But shout out to Ronnie. Shout out to the Ravens sticking around. And then Tylan Wallace also back here. We talked about a little bit, but officially he was everything was announced. I thought it was pretty cool. The Ravens are like naming. What are they naming after Tylan Wallace? It's like a whole area in their facility, like a whole room in their facility. It's going to be named after because of the punt return touchdown.
Nice,
which is pretty cool. One of the conference rooms is going to be named after him. So it's pretty cool because typically they only do that for like your biggest name. So the fact that they're doing that for a guy of Tylan Wallace's like stature, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tylenol. That's right, Maryland and Texas. Yeah, buddy.
That's right.
Headaches out there.
That's right.
Love that guy. But unless you have something else to talk about with the Ravens, I think we want to spend a little bit of time talking about what some of the other teams are doing around.
Yeah, that's what I'm always excited to talk about the Ravens, but at this point in the season, it's fun to kind of like widen the scope a little bit and look around. So I want to start with the Bengals, of course. Glenn, you talked about it. Jamar Chase is now the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, and you could tell that was really important to him. Sorry, DK, I don't know.
Did he make more than Myles Garrett?
I think it's like point something more.
Did he?
Yeah. In annual salary, I don't know if the guarantees are more, but his annual salary is like, because Garrett's is like 40 clean, right? And then his is like 40 point whatever, like 1.8, I think, or something. It's still in the same ballpark, but anyway, yeah. So Jamar Chase got paid an absolute boatload. And then T. Higgins signs, 4 years, $115 million. The first 2 years guaranteed. It's a wild time in Cincinnati. I don't know how they have money to pay other guys anything after this. Like, what are they going to do about Joe's offensive line?
Well, what are they going to do about the whole defensive side of the ball? I mean,
right.
Last year, offense wasn't the problem here. In Cincinnati, it was they couldn't just outscore every team, and so I don't see how this is going to fix that problem. That's the issue. So the actual cap hit is approximately next season for those three guys 37.8% of their total salary cap hit, which is a little bit lower than I think somebody was saying it's 44%. But after doing the cap. Regardless, you're talking somewhere between 38 and 45% of their entire cap is going to be going towards three players. That means the rest of your team has to be filled with young guys or veterans on minimal to close to minimal contracts. And I just don't know if you can build a championship roster if you're investing that much money on one side of the ball, only in skill positions. Now, I can see if they were paying, let's say, pay Joe, pay Jamar, and then pay maybe a tackle, on that offensive side of the ball. Okay. You could, but T. Higgins been banged up a lot. Joe Burrow's had his issues. Jamar's, but I wouldn't really call those two. But T. Higgins has missed time pretty consistently, pretty regularly. I think it's always a good idea to keep your homegrown talent, but man, I don't know, man. This seems like a gutsy move to pay all those guys.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree. DK said in our chat, they're drafting all defense, right? Like, what other options do they have? Yeah, man, it's
now they're letting the leader in sacks last year leave, Hendrickson.
Yeah, and what's his name retired? Who's his running mate? Hubbard.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Hubbard retired, so there goes the neighborhood, right?
Yeah, man. So
I'm happy to see those boys going.
I am too, man. And I know Ronnie Stanley is too.
Yeah, he ain't mad at it at all.
No.
Yeah, it's just weird because I think that we talk about all the time about building. Eric talks about building up the middle. We talk about building inside out. I think this is the opposite. I mean, it's fair to say that these guys are pillars on this team. But you talked about it, Glenn, with the college game changing, wide receivers are seemingly being devalued a bit. And so they're bucking the trend a bit here, right? Like, I
Yeah.
know these guys are still getting paid massive money, but I don't know. I don't know what to do about this other than I'm glad that the Ravens aren't in this scenario. However, does this now mean that when Zay is up, he's getting paid
Oh
more
God.
than T. Higgins? What? I mean, he's not a number 2.
Yeah. If I was the agent, yeah, I'd be saying, excuse me, Ravens, can we talk? And also, how much of a steal does the deal they got Bateman on look like
Oh
now?
my goodness, dude! I think you do something for Bateman's contract, right? You put some incentives in there, some, whatever.
Or he's
Yeah,
gonna get grumpy.
yeah,
And
that's what I'm saying.
I might get a little grumpy too if I was Rashad, because it's looking like an absolute steal.
Right?
Well, OJ, I mean, uh, you don't think it's valuable to look around what other teams are doing?
What's up?
No, it's just somebody's like, who cares what other teams are doing? I mean, I get what you're saying. You got to focus on yours, but literally looking around the AFC North is exactly what the Ravens and the rest of the
It's our
teams
direct
do.
competition.
That's the first step is win the North, right? That's the
Yep.
first step in every season's goal, and so that'll continue to be the same way. And I know what you're saying. You got to focus on you, but you do got to keep an eye on what the other teams are doing as well, I think. And that's what
For
we're
sure.
doing
I mean,
here.
I don't think it's about. Trust me, I don't think the Ravens are overly analyzing the other teams as much as we are. That's what we do as folks that have microphones in front of us, right? That's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
So you run your own race, and we want the Ravens to do it, and they do a good job at that, right? Like the Ravens aren't going to change up their philosophy, but just because of other teams, change for the sake of change is probably not the best idea, but proper change, a well thought out change makes a lot of sense.
Well, how many teams in the AFC North do you think have changed their draft strategy since Lamar Jackson started beating the shit out of all of them?
Right.
I don't think they changed their draft strategy when they were like, all right, what are we going to do about this guy? Because he's going to be here for a long time. Okay. So, they definitely have done that. But not to be outdone when it comes to spending money, I did want to switch over, while not in the North, still in the AFC, and a team that made the playoffs last year, the Houston Texans. Man, they gave Derek Stanley Jr. the bag, Jimbo. $89 million in guarantees, $30 million base value per year, reset the cornerback market by a decent margin. This wasn't a 0.01 more than the next guy. I think it was a cool $5 million more per, which is massive. And it was funny too, because when I saw this announced, the first comment I saw under it was a quick little gif of Isaiah Likely dunking on him in the corner of the end zone this past season, which I absolutely – and made it look – it was that touchdown that was so smooth where he just reached over and grabbed it and landed cleanly. And everybody – yeah. So I love to see that. But when this what scares me, Jimbo, with the contracts, with the TV contracts forcing the cap up every year, people are like, oh, it's not going to be an issue keeping your homegrown talent. Well, here's what I'm nervous about right here, Jimbo. These jumps in the market that we're going to see, because agents know, and they see these contracts, they see the cap numbers going up. So they're going to try and get as much money for their clients and their future clients as they can. So this kind of stuff makes me nervous. Not only are we, potentially Wiggins is quite a few years away, but he's looking like he's going to get an extension. What does this mean? For Kyle Hamilton, who's a defensive back, Jimbo, he's not going to say, I'm going to be paid. Like, do you think the Ravens are going to have the ability to pay Kyle Hamilton as a safety?
Right. Yeah. No, and look, even right around the corner, what are they doing about Marlon Humphrey? Right. This does something to affect the negotiations of Marlon Humphrey's potential extension, right? Like, is Marlon in the same situation as Mark, where we say, well, this is what we can do. And we had a great run and good luck and best of luck to you. Man, the hardest one for me in that situation was, remember Ed Reed?
Yeah.
Oh, when Ed Reed was in another uniform, that was just painful for me.
Yeah.
But have we reached that point with Marlon upcoming? Do they want to get an extension done? And this certainly has an impact on that conversation, right? So the Ravens are like, holy crap.
Well, I mean, because if like Marlon, I could, because at least he's 8, but you cannot let Kyle Hamilton leave. And if I'm Kyle Hamilton's agent, I'm going, we're not talking cornerback or we're talking DB. he's a DB because he plays a lot of corner for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So Kyle Hamilton is going to reset the DB market, not the safety market. That means he's going to get more than Stingley got. I mean, he's going to get more than any DB. When he's time to get paid, I want more than the rest. And he might even want a little bump, like a jump in the market, not a 0.01 better, but like Stingley got, where he got like $5 million per more. That's what worries me, because Kyle Hamilton is going to get all of it. Like, he's just so good. So yeah, it's making me nervous, man. How the hell are they going to pay him?
Yeah, I didn't think about him like, approaching it like, remember the Jimmy Graham situation?
Yeah, this ain't no tight end, baby. I'm a pass catcher.
Yeah. Oh boy. Not looking forward to that one.
And we don't have a ton of time left, right? Like,
no, we don't. I want to talk really quickly about, keep going on the AFC North. I want to talk about the Steelers quarterback situation. I want to do so by reading a quote. I found a lot of enjoyment out of this, and you and I had a bit of different takes here, but Cameron Hayward talked about Aaron Rodgers on his podcast, the Not Just Football podcast. And he said, quote, "I ain't doing that darkness retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, you don't. That's simple. That's the pitch. If you want me to recruit, that's the recruiting pitch. Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to be part of it, so be it. If you don't, no skin off my back." And then he said, tired of talking about the quarterback situation. There was something else that he said. Why can't I find this quote? He's basically said, he said this is like where gladiators are born or something like that. This, that, and the other. Gladiators come to play. And I'm like, okay, you guys were gladiators down 21-0 in Baltimore, getting the soul sucked out of you. I mean, just, yeah, right. Real gladiators you guys were. But how are gladiators mediocre for the past decade? What are you talking about? Aren't gladiators supposed to be like, you know what I mean? Like,
it was the low-level gladiators, not. So
he was like, Maximus? Yeah. They're the gladiators that go out there that you already know are going to be killed.
Yeah,
they're
done.
They're dead before they go out there.
They're done.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, look, I want you to give your take, but I'm going to give mine first. And that, like, I think that there is enough left in Aaron Rodgers. I know you're going to think I'm crazy to think that he's a better option than anything that is existing, including a rookie that could come to this team for this upcoming year. And so, because, I mean, if you look what Russ did last year, I think that it's fair to say that Aaron Rodgers can emulate that plus some, and he made him competitive at the very least. And now he has two big weapons on the outside. So really, he has to just be a little bit better than Russ and chuck it down the field a little more and take care of the ball. We know Aaron Rodgers can take care of the football historically, right? Like his touchdown to, he's had years where his touchdown interception ratio is ridiculous. So when I saw that, I just kind of chuckled a little bit because I was like, man, Cameron, it sounds like you guys are coming off a Super Bowl run or, tons of playoff magic that you recently had. So for me, I would have kind of waited a little bit to make those comments. I still not that Aaron Rodgers, you need to like grovel at his feet, right? Like, I don't think it's that A-Rod anymore, but I do think there's enough left to where it might be worth like reserving some comments and letting the process play out. Cause I think he's just your best scenario. I think he's better than Russ coming back too.
I think you're probably right about that. He's probably better than Russ. He's probably better than Mason Rudolph at this point. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah.
But I think, like, what do you look at as what's the peak? What's the top thing you could expect from Aaron Rodgers coming there? Do you think the top goal, which is the Super Bowl, is possible for the Steelers if they get Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I think so, but I don't think it would be because I don't think it happens. Like, when it doesn't happen, I don't think it would be simply because of Aaron Rodgers. I think that other issues, like Pickens being an absolute buffoon and DK throwing a fit on the sideline or whatever, their lack of a running back room, something like that, may have more to do with that than Aaron Rodgers. But I think with Aaron Rodgers, they can make a Super Bowl. You might think I'm crazy. I think at this point you think I'm crazy, and that is okay.
I think you're a little crazy.
But I do think that there's enough left in the tank for one run with a solid defense. If they have a decent run game, a decent offensive line, and those two big boys on the outside, I think that there's enough to compete.
Yeah, well, I mean, my whole thing would be like you're going to pay $40 million for a headache of a quarterback who's going to divide your locker room, who's going to make weekly stops at the Pat McAfee show. And if he's unhappy, who knows what's going to come out of his mouth? Is he going to voice it? He probably will. Doesn't seem to be, a guy who's going to keep many things to himself if he chooses to announce them. So I think you're going to get a headache. And then that's what we see. And then behind the scenes, we're hearing now that he's leaving the Jets, that he's had, that Garrett Wilson couldn't see eye to eye with him, that there was personality issues behind the scenes. So it's the stuff we see, and you're going to have to deal with him behind the scenes too, which it's going to be a direct line to Mike Tomlin. He's your quarterback, and he's probably going to be your highest paid player. So you're going to have to deal with that all year. On top of dealing with the immaturities and the headache from George Pickens, on top of the hot-headedness that you're now dealing with DK Metcalf, and the rest of the responsibilities that the head coach has, while also trying to beat the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the rest of the members of the Cincinnati Bengals, all that. I just don't think Aaron Rodgers for $40 million a year gets you any closer to winning. Like, he might get you a little closer, but he doesn't get you close enough to winning a championship to justify $40 million, a massive headache, the potential splintering of your locker room. Whereas I would just go, look, we'll take our chances with what we got. We'll draft a young guy. If the young guy we want doesn't fall to us, next year's supposed to be a better quarterback class, and we'll go into it next year. I mean, I don't really see what's the huge upside other than potentially some extra ticket sales.
And really quickly, Glenn, the $40 million, is that, did I miss something?
That's what the expectation is, that he's okay.
Million. All right. I'm off the table for $40 million.
You're not doing 40?
No, I'm not doing $40 million, dude.
That's what he wants.
No, then go sit at home, Aaron. You're not getting You're not getting the same amount of money that you are in age in yearly salary. Like, that's not happening. It's not happening. No, not today, not tomorrow, not the next day. No.
And then on top of that, he's now doing the move of, because before it was, I'll let you know soon. And now it's, I'll let you know when I'm ready to let you know. Potentially could be after the draft. So now, if you're the Steelers, you're now going into the draft having no idea if he's going to pick you, the Giants, retirement, ayahuasca. We don't know what he's going to do. So now you're pigeonholed into potentially picking a quarterback that you might not even want, but you might say, I kind of need him because I don't know what that guy's doing. And then if you don't land a quarterback, now that $40 million could turn to 45 because he knows you're desperate. So now you give Aaron Rodgers, who has a huge platform and is pretty wishy-washy and unpredictable, all the bargaining power. Just 100% bargaining power. You have no other choice.
Oh my gosh, the Steelers, dude. It does bring me true joy to see the situation that the Steelers are in. My gosh. And you know what the best part is, Glenn? This is the best part, is that, we talked about this before the show started. Their alternative is hoping Shedeur Sanders falls to them.
Yeah. Which even though most people have a lot of people have a second round grade on him, I just find it hard to believe that in a league where everyone needs a quarterback, that he's just going to sit around on the board till the mid-20s.
Oh, you're right. I think the grade and where he gets drafted are two different things. Kind of like Jason talked about, right? There's no way he falls to the second round.
No way.
He's going to be a first round quarterback. That's for sure. It just, his peers, himself included, like his class is just not great. And teams always, they're willing to reach on quarterbacks. So, man, I'm not a believer in Shedeur. I mentioned that, and I'm excited. I would love to see him in black and yellow. Oh, I would love it. My goodness. You know how, Glenn, you know how unathletic he's going to look in the backfield when Kyle Hamilton is chasing him down?
I hope so.
Oh, it's going to be hilarious.
When Odafe always chasing him down?
Well, he might get away from Odafe, but certainly Kyle, or either Kyle Van Noy or Kyle Hamilton, Nnamdi coming after Shedeur.
Oh yeah, he's
exciting stuff.
Every time I see him, he's so much faster than you would think. Like when Nnamdi takes off.
Oh, dude. And every time he tackles someone, it like he just, I swear, gives him whiplash.
Yeah.
Every single time. I would want nothing more than Shedeur Sanders in the AFC
Look,
North.
if I was a Steelers fan, I'd be a whole lot happier because I know you don't like Shedeur. I still think Shador has plenty of chance to become a great NFL quarterback. I think he's got to prove some things, but I'm not willing to just say he's not. And I would be way happier if I was a Steeler fan to just not sign Aaron Rodgers, sit where I'm, and let him fall to me. I don't think he's going to fall, but I'm saying that would be my ideal scenario if I was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, is just to stand pat and draft a guy. I'm more of a Jackson Dart guy. I think you could get him later, and I think he has higher upside. But that's what I would do if I was Pittsburgh. Go young, or go with Mason Rudolph and pick a quarterback next year. Man. But I'm not giving $40 million.
No, I agree. I mean, I didn't realize those expectations. It must have been something I missed. But yeah, I'm not giving Aaron Rodgers.
Talk about unathletic. Imagine Aaron Rodgers trying to run away. I mean, he makes me look like Usain Bolt. Like I look like a fluid athlete next to him right now. Like he has no mobility left. He's so slow now. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Oh my gosh, I'm putting zero respect.
Comment here.
Sorry, MD in Texas. I'm putting zero respect on Shador Sanders' name. This has proved anything to me. What has he proven to me? Like, come on, man. I said Caleb Williams was a bum, and he had way higher competition in college.
And now this is the year for Caleb. They built a wall in front of him.
Yeah, but he's just not that good. He doesn't have it between the ears is his problem.
And you could be right about that, but this is where the excuses stop. He's going to have a good offensive line. He got Ben Johnson, an offensive-minded guru. He's got Rome Odunze. He's got DJ Moore. He's got Cole Kmet, and I'm sure they're going to add to that group because they did lose Keenan Allen, who's 150. But there's going to be no excuses. They put all pros in front of them. They got the best offensive mind who's doing all this creative shit in Detroit. Okay, let's see what you got.
Right. The only problem is when you're mentally soft and extremely egotistical, you can only. I don't know how you're a successful NFL quarterback with that combination.
Yeah, well, maybe he ate in some humble pie his first rookie season.
Maybe.
Don C says over a third of their salary tied up in 3 people in a roster that's Swiss cheese. Cincinnati players stop at a crosswalk to go to the practice field. What a dumpster fire. Great show, guys. Yeah, I mean, look, you don't want to be in the habit of letting homegrown talent leave either. So they were in a tough position in that those 3 guys were kind of banded together. And so I don't really – it's a tough spot for Cincinnati. But the ultimate thing, like, you can't build a roster when you're paying only – I just don't think when you're paying 3 guys all that do, just your quarterback and your pass catchers, I think you just need more than that.
Yeah. Football's the ultimate team game. I mean, it is what it is. And I think that they will learn that in the near future. But I think that might be it for us tonight, Glenn. I know we want to talk about the free agents, but I think we'll have to punt.
Yeah. Now we got plenty of time to talk about that. And let's be honest, the Ravens in the current cap situation, until they make moves, they're not really in position to do much.
But look, Glenn, I'll answer the last question, yes or no. Have the Ravens kept pace in the AFC North? My answer is yes.
Yeah, my answer is yes as well. They brought back their most important positions to bring back, and then they added D-Hop on the most reasonable contract I've seen given out to any pass catcher. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah, awesome. And so stay tuned, guys. I think the Ravens are doing a great job here, positioning themselves well for the draft, which is where we make our hay anyway. Looking forward to it. But that's it for us tonight, folks. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great evening.